Hello and welcome to Taking Liberties. I was about to say Aussie Liberty. Taking Liberties Radio for this week. It is the 21st of September. My name is Lee. I'm joined, of course, by Vikas.
Over in the ACT.
Over in the ACT. Australian Communist Territory. And we're going to be talking about kind of two-ish, three-ish topics. So we're going to talk about the firing of a no voter, which has stirred up a lot of controversy. And we're going to kind of also go into the whole Google not allowing neo-Nazis on their platforms, and Twitter and Cloudflare and other things. And then we might talk about coal being dead, supposedly, according to Sarah Hanson-Young, known expert on engineering, power generation, Senator for the Greens. She said coal is dead, so we'll get into that if we can. So let's start off talking about this. What was the name?
Madeline Sims. Yeah.
So she has it's like a clothing business. I recall correctly.
No, it's a children's entertainment business.
That's right. Because she brought up the possibility of children being harmed by having this person. It was a woman, actually. So I guess my automatic jump was to she fired a man, but it turns out she fired a woman. So bad for me assuming.
A 19-year-old woman whose name is also Madeline. Funnily enough. But so the story, because this actually happened in the ACT, and by the way, she couldn't have picked a worse place to do this. The main issue is she effectively posted something along the lines of, look, an employee of mine who happens to be a contractor posted saying that that it's okay to vote no, and she was intending to vote no. Now, she subsequently clarified this position. She originally said, so I fired her because it's obviously bad for business, blah, 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 blah. Everyone vote yes, blah, blah, blah. She was expecting people to start clapping their hands and all this other stuff. It was one giant virtue signal that obviously backfired on her.
Yeah.
But the problem was, so in this, she admitted that it was a political reason that she fired the person. It was a political disagreement. And subsequently in that same thread, and it's been deleted now, but people have screenshotted the shit out of it.
Of course.
She admitted to telling the employee to take it down or face the sack.
Interesting.
Yeah. Now, this presents a number of interesting things. So, subsequently, George Christensen has submitted the incident, like the postings, to the Australian Human Rights Council because it's actually a textbook case of political discrimination, which is something the AHRC has in their mandate to crack down on.
Yeah. Whether they will is a totally separate question, but...
Well, probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
But probably not.
Because you can't be racist to white people.
Well, I'd say probably not, but also if they do it, it'd be a very half-hearted attempt.
Yeah.
They wouldn't go anywhere near as hard as they did with Callum Thwaites and that entire QUT case. But that pushed to the side. The more interesting thing is the ACT has very strong anti-discrimination legislation, and it's got to do with the fact that everybody here kind of works for the government. Well, not everybody, but like the vast majority of people work for the government. The result of that is there might be there might be inclinations to therefore bring politics into the nature of your day-to-day work. So things like the APS Code of Conduct are there to, like, it's really freaking hard to fire a public servant except if they're actually politically biased. Right, then it's actually quite easy to get rid of them.
Right.
So similarly, that's sort of expanded into bringing anti-discrimination legislation in the territory to protect that. Now, the biggest litigation firm in Canberra. So it was on the radio here that the biggest litigation firm has decided to take this case on.
Yep.
So Madeline Sims is probably going to face some shit coming from that end. And they, quite frankly, it's a textbook example because she's admitted to saying you'll face the sack if you don't delete this post. And on the other side, you've also got George Christensen taking it to the HRC. The other thing that someone's pointed out is, wouldn't this be a textbook example of unfair dismissal? Now, unfortunately, being as the case as per how Madeline Sims is laid out is that and probably should stop saying her name, but that was the name in the
it's in the media.
It was a name.
It was on. It was like she was the one who posted it on Facebook and made it public. So
sure,
kind of. I mean, it's can't be defamed for something that you actually said.
True. So I just want to be careful about what I'm insinuating about this. One of the posts she did make said that she has the girl that was saying it was okay to vote no.
Madeline, we should call her.
No, sure, but she had her own ABN and she was an independent contractor. Working for her. So technically, it's kind of more like a business partnership. So it's not an employee-employer relationship, despite what she's posted. Now, here's the thing, and this is a common practice in the small end of town here in Canberra, is to skirt around all these union laws and things, about casual work and casual hire. You have to hire them for a minimum of 3 hours at a time and all this other stuff. The way they get around that is to hire them as independent contractors. And one of the things Fair Work Australia takes very seriously is the concept of sham contracting, which is where you've hired someone as a contractor to get around the casual hire thing, right, which requires you to hire them for 3 hours, which requires you to pay them, super and all this other stuff. So they'll hire them as contractors and go you take care of that yourself. Unfortunately,
and I think part of that is they have a very specific definition of what is an employee and what is a contractor, and they'll check on it. So if your contractors have to be independent, they have to essentially do their own work, sort of supervised by themselves. They but if you are saying, okay, I want you to do this and there, and if you're being treated as an employee, the Fair Work will treat them as an employee. So it's and I suspect the process of Fair Work getting up in your shit about this stuff is not pleasant in and of itself. So even aside from whether she's in the right or wrong about whether they're a contractor, the process itself is going to be a bruising experience, I would imagine.
I would imagine so as well. And the problem is she's done the dumb thing, and she must have thought somehow that this would raise the profile of her business. And unfortunately, now there's a whole bunch of lawyers that have been talking about this, going holy shit, her posts, right, have basically triggered a potential FWA investigation into whether she's a sham contractor. Right? And you're right, the process is probably going to be more harmful than anything else coming out of this. So I don't know what she was thinking. And if you are a business owner and saying...
She was feeling self-righteous, that's what she was thinking.
It was a virtue signal.
Of course, sure. Though, as I like to say, everything's a virtue signal. Humans are constantly virtue signaling, so it's not unusual. But I mean, she's done something incredibly stupid very publicly, and I suspect if she's speaking to a lawyer, which would be the sensible thing to do, the lawyer would be saying, get ready to settle, because that's essentially what would be the best outcome, is just don't go through the process, just try and settle, because you're just not going to want to go through all that, I'd imagine. And I don't want to say that she is a sham contractor. I'm just repeating what everybody. I'm just repeating what a lot of people have been saying around the town, right? I don't know. I don't know the facts of this case, right? Well, it'd be the same with the Human Rights Commission. If the Human Rights Commission start investigating, if they decide to take this seriously and they decide to start investigating, you're gonna have to start hiring lawyers, and that's an expensive thing, even if you win. I mean, in all sorts of legal areas, not just in this.
It's just like Callum Thwaites, right? He spent $200,000 to defend. Sorry, $125,000 to defend himself.
Exactly. So the process itself is. I mean, I guess in some ways, in some of these cases, the process is the punishment. This is what Donald Trump did. He bragged about using libel laws to punish journalists who would call him out for stuff. But it's anything involving lawyers. You don't want to have anything to do with that if you can avoid it. So
But here's the thing. I kind of agree with her ability to fire people. Right? I'm sitting there going I'm actually happy for her to be able to fire someone for political disagreements. Now, I'm not going to do business with someone like that. Thank God I don't need a child entertainer. But the point is, right, this kind of tit for tat going on between conservatives and various left-wing organizations using the law to basically harm each other in terms of legal process. I think that's leading us So I think we had a discussion a couple of weeks ago where we've lost civility, right? It's not free speech that's the issue. It's that we don't have a sense of civility with each other.
Sure.
Right? And it's difficult for people to argue their point without facing repercussions, either in a civil court or, by losing their jobs, or, even something as simple as having like their name slandered all over the internet. Yeah. Now, we've lost civility partly because all these laws exist, right? And the other part is also the culture that we've built. And we're not really... The culture part is easier to tackle than the laws, right? Because the laws actually require us to go to Parliament and start scaling them back between, what is fair and what is not fair. But the culture thing, like, I think as libertarians we don't do enough to actually point out this little... that we have ingrained a small amount of culture that says it is absolutely fine to fucking go after someone, go visceral, go straight for the throat of someone, and go fire that person or do a BDS against that company.
Yeah, right? I mean, I think it's the drive to outrage. It's the real kind of core issue, which is, I mean, this is something when I read an article for Liberty Works about why I think libertarians shouldn't be involved in the culture war, and I think it's that drive towards outrage, and I mean, it's actually, I mean, I'm still happy to talk about the same-sex marriage issue, but I'm actually now starting to unfollow people on Facebook because all they are engaged in is just this constant outrage cycle of, oh, look at how we're being bullied, oh, look how they're bullying us, look how bad and mean they are, look how harmful they are, and it's both sides. It's not lefty saying, oh, we're victims. It's both the conservative and the progressive side are saying how, oh, we're being bullied, we're the victims, feel sorry for us.
Have you noticed that this campaign is literally both sides claiming to be bullied?
Yeah, I hate it. Right? I hate it so much.
No, and this is why I wanted to do that article. By the way, at the time of recording this, I've actually finished the article. I haven't published it, but I've finished it. We will talk about it.
Yeah.
But the point is, both sides are effectively claiming victimhood status, and I think this is a hangover of 2016, effectively. Where victimhood was in. I mean, 2016 was the year of I'm a victim.
Yeah.
Right? And for some reason in 2017, despite the fact that Trump won, by clearly going out there and saying, I don't care I'm offensive. I don't care that I'm offensive.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fucking apologize. Right?
Well, but his whole campaign was about victimhood as well. Yeah, look at these dirty Mexican rapists who are coming across and harming us. Like they're all the jobs. They're taking our jobs. They're stealing our jobs.
You're right.
His whole campaign was based. So he himself was not portraying himself as a victim. I mean, obviously Clinton did and continues to, bizarrely. But like his whole message was about appeasing victimhood. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, these Mexicans coming here and all of that stuff. Yeah. No, you're the true victims. You're right. Yeah. I missed that.
Yeah. And even in the trade deal stuff, like we've got bad deals. It's harming Americans. We need to stand up to this kind of stuff. Like it's all victimhood. And I think even in these sorts of cases, so a great example of the contrast is, with this case with Madeline Sims, you've also got a case of a pastor refusing to marry a couple because the fiance, the wife to be, she posted on Facebook saying she supported the Yes campaign. So this is I think it was a Presbyterian church, which we've learnt is actually an anagram for Britney Spears, apparently. Presbyterian is, which is the greatest thing I've ever heard. But yeah, it was a Presbyterian church in Victoria where the pastor was getting ready to marry the couple. Yeah. She said, I'm going to vote yes, encouraging people. And he said, well, I'm not going to marry you anymore. And the contrast is telling because both sides are saying how outrageous this is, how we should not have anything to do with these people, but then they don't apply the same standards to themselves. They don't say, well, I'm going to be outraged, this is a terrible thing, but you can't criticize this thing that I like, you can't do this thing that I don't like. It's just complete hypocrisy. It's complete bulldust.
Yeah, but there's plenty of hypocrisy. It's not just the hypocrisy going around, though. It's the fact that, see, here's the thing. The yes and no sides aren't really talking to each other, but the funny thing is they're not really trying to make a case to anyone who's not a yes or no voter.
Yeah.
Now, that's remarkably different from every other debate we've ever had up until this point in Australia, right? And I mean, like, you can go right back and you can listen to, like, debates. Like, there are instances where Labor and Liberal are talking past each other. It happens a lot, right? But it's never... The point is they don't talk past Labor because they ignore Labor, right? They're not talking to their own people. They're talking past Labor to the independents, or rather the people who are genuinely in the middle, who don't have any feelings either way, but they're like, you know what, I could be convinced of that argument.
Yep.
Right? And the thing is, if you take a look at it, the arguments presented by both sides, in not just their opening salvo, but if you asked a no voter, what is your strongest argument, right? They will tell you, if we allow gay marriage, safe schools, and all of this other stuff, and you sit there going like, you realize most people actually don't give a shit about safe schools.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I don't like the safe schools program because I don't think that zero tolerance bullying programs help in any way. They stifle kids' growth. They stifle kids' logical growth, like the ability to properly grasp concepts and actually properly express themselves. So, and if you take a look at it, you can go back through every anti-bullying program we've ever had and see there's a remarkable drop in the ability of children to do simple logical problems, right? And there are loads of people in STEM that have noticed the same pattern. But that aside, right, that's not a reason to go no for gay marriage.
Yep.
Right? And then if you ask the yes people, what is your strongest argument for gay marriage? They'll come up with the most saccharine piece of shit argument you'll ever hear. Like, oh, it's all about equality. And I sit there going like, you realize that's not that compelling. I mean, it's not like we're sitting here going like, these people are subhuman. These people aren't, human.
Yeah.
And they're not equal. Right? What we're talking about here is a legal problem.
Yeah.
Right? And it's something that most people, like, it's so abstract, right? Like the idea that, hey, a court might not accept your registered relationship. Right?
Yeah.
That's abstract to people, right? And you can sit there and explain it to them and go like, but, you can spend money to get there, and go like, yeah, but why should you? Right? Why should you have to spend money to get the thing that you've gone to the government and gotten registered, right? Why should you have to spend more money to get that recognized than someone who just went and got married? Right?
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out at this point that we're actually going to try and get a couple of family lawyers onto the show. You have to do an episode with them to talk about these specific issues because, it's
actually really nuanced. And by the way, every time Tony Abbott says, there's no difference, that's a crock of shit. There's actually
big differences.
There are big differences, but they're not differences that manifest in any sort of real and tangible, like everyday living kind of way.
It's just at very specific points in time. It's a huge problem.
Yeah, like very specific points in time. Like, say, best example is pregnancy, right?
Yeah.
Like, and this is really a problem for lesbian couples. But, like, the point is, if one of them gets pregnant, it's really hard for them to stick both names on a birth certificate.
Yeah.
Right?
And also, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, it's really hard for them to stick both names on the certificate, get the parenting recognized. In fact, the roundabout process that's been come around is something along the lines of adoption, but not really. Anyway, it's a mess. The point is, it would become very, very easy from a legal perspective to just go, hey, this is, whether it's marriage, whether it's civil union, whether it's registered relationship, whatever the fuck it is, just make it the same across the board. It would make things a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, one of the aspects about this particular debate that's different from normal, elections is that it's voluntary. I mean, this is the thing about when they talk about the US election is, well, the first thing you need to do is motivate your own base to show up. And so to a large extent, it actually makes sense for the yes campaign and the no campaign to focus on their own kind of people who are inclined to think like them, just to make sure that they fill out the paperwork and stick it in the post. Because you don't have to. You're not going to get fined if you don't do it. So motivating your own side is important, and the best way to do that is to hit that outrage button, because that hits, I don't know what it is about humans, but we like the self-righteousness and the sense of moral courage and duty and the rest of it, that comes with that kind of outrage. And I think the other aspect of the kind of not talking to each other, and I've tried to write articles that have addressed people intending to vote no who are Christian. So I'm a Christian conservative Christian who's voting yes or has voted yes. I tried to appeal to people intending to vote no, to give them reasons to change their mind. I
made mine simple. Just give me some freaking beers. And The funny thing is the No campaign was the only campaign that responded, and I swear to freaking God that the 3 people that said, I will send you the beer, have not done so. And I'm sitting there going like, I've given you my address. What the fuck are you waiting for?
Yeah.
I'm not voting. And it's just like, I don't think you understand. I will not vote if you don't give me the beer.
Yeah.
This isn't a symbolic beer. It's a literal beer.
Sure. I personally think the price you're asking is a bit too high for just a vote in this thing, but that's just me. But you know, like it's
anchor high. That's how you say
it. Well, that's true. You know, I think part of the issue is that this is so tied up into other culture war stuff. So that's why the Safe Schools thing is such a big aspect for the No campaign. Is because they're not looking at this as an isolated thing. They're raging against a trend across the board. So, you know, particularly when they say,
backfire against them.
Second, sorry?
That might backfire against them. So,
sure. But like this is just to explain what is happening rather than to say whether it's... I mean, obviously I think it's dumb. Their arguments are dumb. But like, at least I think that makes sense of what's going on. And similarly for... You know, the Yes campaign, they're not purely isolated this and saying that we're dealing this one thing. It's part of a whole range of overall, you know, sort of feelings and strategy.
They're saying they want to see less bullying for LGBT people.
Yeah.
Hey, look, this is one thing. Less bullying. It's one of those things that really, really grinds my gears, right? Like, the thing is, bullying is one of those things that has tremendously decreased over the last 30 years, and we never recognized that.
Yeah.
Right? And it decreased in the same rate as like violence, in the same rate as you know, general violence, you know, regular assault and all of these other things. Bullying just decreased. And it didn't decrease because of these government programs. If you take a look at it, these government programs that came in, like have you heard of the zero tolerance bullying thing?
No. Well, I mean, I know vaguely as just a general strategy or a specific campaign.
It was a specific campaign that then came on to become a policy. The result of that policy was actually like an increase in the number of suspensions, right?
Yeah.
Until it finally got toned back. And the reason why, and everyone could have told them that this was going to be a problem when they came onto it. So zero tolerance is pretty much the same sort of policy as they adopted for drugs, right? And everybody who had the insight of, hey, this is what happened with drugs, so it's not going to work with bullying. Was it completely ignored. The zero tolerance policy effectively said, if your child was the bully or the guy who was being bullied, they'd both get suspended.
Yeah.
Right? And I was sitting there, and you probably would rightfully think, well, hang on, you just want to take the bully out. You don't want to take the bullied also out. And it's just like, no, that way the school is even, right? This is the line of thinking. The school isn't picking sides. Therefore, the kids learn that they have to have a certain behavior, right? Or they will either be kicked out for being bullies or being too meek and, you know, dingo. So you've got abnormal behavior on either end that's being taken out.
Okay, that's bizarre.
Now, the result of that, before it got clawed back, right? And I can't remember the name of the report, but I was talking to someone, someone who's very interested in education policy at Friedman, is that the number of suspensions went up, and then they scaled back the program to bring it back to the original one, which is where they focus on the people who were bullies.
Yeah.
Right? And if you think about it, it sends the wrong fucking message. Right? It sends the message that if you are bullied, you are just as culpable as the bully themselves.
Sure.
Right?
I mean, yeah, I guess, I mean, it's an interesting thing, a bit like violence across, you know, just, you know, all forms of negative kind of things, like, you know, we've seen a decline in violence and also across the board, some things like terrorism, you know, like war, as it's ironic that in the world's become a lot safer, and yet individual instances of these things happening are promoted a lot more. So, you know, you're a gay teenager and some guy comes up and clocks you at uni in the face, you can immediately take a selfie and post it on Facebook, and then it goes viral, you know. Or if, you know, it was like Kevin Rudd's nephew or something got walloped by somebody, you know, or somebody puts up a poster that says, you know, get rid of all the fags or whatever. I mean, that was a fake story about Channel 10, but, you know, like you see posters like going up, like Nazi symbols going up at universities. It's like, you know, like I can't imagine like a Melbourne university's got a massive population of neo-Nazis really even nearby, but anybody can put up a poster and you just take a photo of it and then, oh, well, we've got this terrible neo-Nazi campaign going on. It's like, it's so easy for individual instances to sort of take up this entire, to fill the available space. Like, there's so little going on that even these small instances can take up all the oxygen in for that issue. Now we got about 5 minutes left. I wouldn't mind.
Oxygen.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about coal, or do we want to talk about the Google Cloudflare thing?
No, that's fine.
Okay, all right.
Talk about the coal, mostly because I think last time we spoke about the Liddell power plant being kept open.
On Q&A on Monday night, we should say that Sarah Hanson-Young, engineering power generation extraordinaire, went on Q&A and said, "Coal is dead in Australia." That's the exact quote, or something very.
Yeah, but funnily enough, she's actually right, but not for the reasons she said.
Yeah.
And the AGL boss also made the same comment that coal is just simply too unprofitable. Now the question becomes, why is it unprofitable? Because coal is pretty fucking cheap.
Yeah.
Right? And the answer is basically regulations.
Yeah.
Right? So there's too many regulations to build new coal plants. Those that are open are pretty much entirely reliant on government money. And those that are not government money. They're entirely reliant on government what do you call them? License, I guess, to continue operating. And old plants are being kept open despite the fact that they require so much money for maintenance. Because effectively they need the reliability of their power.
Yep.
So the AGL boss is basically saying along the lines of, coal is dead because the because the government incentivizes us to move away from coal.
Yep.
And that's the part that's not really discussed. So yes, while I said Sarah Hanson-Young is right, it's probably for really bad reasons. Yep. Right? So
well, she would argue they're good reasons because, I mean, her political party are key in trying to kill coal. Like, they're the ones who are pushing all this regulation. They want to kill off coal. So, of course, they're touting their success. Of course, their success is not the success for consumers. It's not a good outcome for people who actually use power.
So what I find interesting is whenever I have this discussion with people, I point out that if you build a 10 megawatt coal-fired power station, right?
Yeah.
From the moment it starts to the moment it experiences a massive failure, right? It will generate 10 megawatts per hour. 10 megawatt hours consistently.
Yeah.
It's a freaking straight line.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason for that is it's usually well moderated. It's got a whole bunch of things that let's just say engineers are good at designing the shit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we've had 200 years now to get good at it.
Yeah.
Every single green renewable power generation mechanism is like this, right? It's all over the shop, and you need things to moderate it out. And the usual thing that they get to moderate it out is right now a more expensive way to moderate it, which is natural gas. Originally, when they started, natural gas was cheap, but due to certain restrictions on exploration, it's not cheap anymore.
Thanks, Greens.
Yeah. And, I've heard them say, like, oh, molten salt is a great solution. And it's like, yeah, it is for one day. But then, if you've got if you have, like, so for example, in Queensland, where you have tropical storms that come up, a 3-day tropical storm would end up basically burning through all that molten salt.
Yeah.
You would no longer have a thermal pit to really drag power from. And it'd take you days to get that molten salt pit right back up to the temperature needed.
Yeah.
I keep saying intermittency is a big problem, and people don't realize exactly how big of a problem it is because they don't sit down and talk to engineers, like proper electrical engineers. And even though we might explain, okay, so you've solved the problem for one day, now you got to expand it out to your what we call the mean time between failures.
Yeah.
Right? Like what we would expect to be the average time between a failure. Now, if you can, and we've done this with coal, and we've done this with natural gas. Sorry, no, we haven't done it with natural gas. Natural gas, sorry, bad, ignore me. But we've done it with coal, we've done it with nuclear, we've done it with things that have, like, what we like to call thermal pits. And we could theoretically do it with something like molten salt. The only problem is molten salt cools down too quickly. But we can do it with anything that's got a thermal pit. We can do that. There are a standard set of calculations that we can do to draw it out for as long as possible. Now, green renewable energy at this point in time has no way of guaranteeing a steady supply of energy into that thermal pit so that we can actually maintain it. So anytime there's a storm, anytime there's cloud cover, anytime there's adverse weather conditions, effectively you're in emergency mode, and that's what South Australia is experiencing. And as you go towards this green electricity fetish, it's going to be a regular thing. Yeah. Right. And look, I admit I'm an electrical engineer that's only got 7 years of experience, right? So I'm a young,
what would you know, really?
Yeah, I'm a young electrical engineer. Okay, I'm at the bottom of the bottom end here, and I'm getting so soon I'll have my design authority accreditation and all this other stuff from Engineers Australia. So I'll be a full blown hack about it.
Yeah.
But the point is, right? Proper electrical engineers will also make these same points, right? And it's not because it's because firstly, it's our job, right? And secondly, despite the fact that I am a huge fan of solar in country New South Wales or even country Queensland, right? All these all these localities that are really remote, solar and wind are fantastic because they don't need scalability. They don't need scalability. They don't need.
You've only got 20,000 people in your town. You don't need to have, the scale works a lot better for that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and you also can kick up a bunch of diesel generators. I was going to say engineers, diesel generators. You could power a town on diesel generators if you only got a couple of thousand people or whatever. You can't do that with a city of 5 million.
Well, it's not just that. It's the question is the question usually comes down to what does your failure what are you willing to accept as a failure, right? Like a town of 20,000, right? If you have a brownout for 8 hours, right, the economic impact is nil, maybe, right? And don't get me wrong, we've way back when I was doing my engineering thesis, engineering reports. So the 4-tier topic that every engineer has to go through, we would look at the distribution of electricity grids, and we would just go okay, that town's got 5,000 people. The economic impact of a 4-hour brownout is negligible, right? Because it happens quite often, and the town just keeps plugging along. And it's also about when that downtime can occur, right? So, for example, a 4-hour downtime between midnight and 4 a.m. in, say, let's pick a small town. I don't know, Coffs Harbour.
Sure.
Right? Not going to matter. Nobody's going to notice it, right? A 4-hour downtime, say, in the same town, between midday and 4 p.m., right? That's going to be a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's all sorts of planning that we do around all of these, building redundancy, building, capacitance circuits, and even something as simple as building a distribution grid so we can move electricity around places, pump it to, you could pump it to, say, a water storage thing, so that you can bring it down again. There's things we can do, but renewable energy at this point in time does not deal with those aspects very well, and that's why anything that's heavily reliant on renewable energy anywhere in the world always experiences the same problems.
Yep. We've got to wrap things up, but I actually went to a Liberty Works event last night with Jo Nova, who's she's a science communicator. That's her background, but she's really got into the climate change stuff. And I was a bit reluctant going along, thinking this is just going to be a bunch of, UN, Bilderberg Group, Illuminati nonsense, which I hate. But she actually gave a brilliant presentation on the economics of power and of the engineering issues around power and how renewables distort how you can operate the grid and all this kind of stuff. And it was actually really, really great. So I haven't been to her website to double check how much of that's there. But if you want more information about some of the stuff that Vikas is talking about in specific instances of how renewables distort the market and affect power generation, those peak times, between 12 and 4 is great for solar, but that has an impact on the rest of how the rest of everything else is generated. So, and some of the issues of the tolerances that these systems have for like for you know, like the tolerance for how badly things can go is very small, you know, so you can have a minute change in like the frequency or whatever it is of how the power is generated, and the whole thing just shuts down. Yep. Because that's how it's designed. So yeah, she had some really fascinating information about that kind of stuff, but we have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
So final word.
I was just going to say, I haven't actually heard about this. Sorry, I haven't actually seen it, but I have heard about this, and you're not the first person to point this out. Just to point things out, I have not read this Jo Nova article. I don't tend to frequent her website at all.
Yeah.
Because this is the first time I'm hearing where it's not a UN conspiracy, and that's not the main tagline. So if she started taking on like engineering, the engineering aspect of it, and if she's tackling on these particular subjects that I've spoken about, that's good, and it shows that she's actually talking to proper electrical engineers.
Yep.
Anyone out there who's actually interested in electricity generation and the pitfalls of renewable energy, talk to an electrical engineer, right? Like, we've been trying to solve these problems for 20 years now, and we still aren't any closer.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, on that despairing note of terrible economics, we'll leave positively. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe our stuff. You can go to iTunes and leave a review. We should actually look at our reviews at some stage. And we'll be back again next week.
See ya.